Okay, this might work. This might work. Please work. Please work. Please work. Okay, I just need to figure out where it is. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes! Yes! Okay. How do I explain where this is? Okay. I know I'm currently live, but I'm also trying to tweet at the same time. It is working. Now I've got to find the link to the thing. No, it's not there. No! Don't make sounds. There it is. That's it. That's the link. Yes! It's me! Okay. And then I'm gonna tweet the link. Okay. It's working. Good. Hi. How do I can't see myself, which is a little bit, well, I guess I can open that link that I just tweeted and see myself there. It's not at all going the way I want it to go. Oh, I can open this. Yes. Okay. That's definitely me. Okay. So, I don't know if people are here, and I don't know if you can comment on this, because it's not like I tried to set up this live event page with a thing in the sidebar where you can chat, but I'm logged into another YouTube account so I can make sure that I'm actually streaming, but I can't see any chat windows, and I don't know if that's because I'm using an old iPad or if it's just not there. So the best way to talk to me during this is to tweet at me. I'm just going to leave this same link. Let me see. Where am I? I'm just going to leave that same link a few other places as well. Copy link. Backup stream is working. I'm just reading out loud so it's not super boring. Let me just make sure that I have all the correct links. Again, this is super boring for everyone watching, but just give me a second, and after I've fixed everything, where do I put this here? Where's the event page? Okay, let me just put it in the YouTube event, and then backup stream. There we go. So it's not exactly how I wanted it to go, but at least it's doing something. What's happening here? Oh, I posted in my own event, right. I'm just going to ignore the Facebook tab, close the Facebook tab even. I'm going to leave this open, close this tab. Okay, I'm all caught up now. Right, so I just wanted to do this live event with a very different introduction, without all the chaos, without the 45-minute delay because I couldn't get things working. So what I think I'm going to do, now that at least I figured out how to get to the backup option quicker, worst case scenario, if I do another event, if the same problem happens again, I would just only need at most 10 minutes to get a backup stream started and not 45. Yeah, so that's the good news. The not so good news is that I do have a whole bunch of things, like talking points prepared that I wanted to talk about, And also, the other bad news is that everyone has given up on me, and even though I started with a decent number of viewers, I could see how many people were waiting for the stream. There is only one person watching now, and I'm fairly sure that that's just my own iPad. I don't know if it's counting itself or if it's that plus one other person. But either way, if you're the other person, please let me know. So as I said, I can't see any comments. Although, yeah, maybe I can. Wait. Yeah, I can see. I have figured out where I can see comments. So you can comment on YouTube and you can tweet me on Twitter. But I will keep this very, very short. So just consider this the test live stream, and I will probably just put the video up later, just to sort of catch up and so that you know that I did figure it out eventually. But what I wanted to do was just have a sort of an online space that takes the place of just a very casual scicomm meetup. Because I usually, not usually, but whenever I've been at a science communication themed conference, there's always just such a great sense of community where people get together and share ideas, not just as part of the sessions, but also in the pub afterwards or during the coffee breaks. And I figured because we're all online, you might as well try to emulate something like that in a live stream. Oh hey, I do actually have a new person watching now, so that's something. Yeah, please do say hi either in the YouTube comments that I can see that now. I have that on my screen, or I also have TweetDeck open in the other tab, and I can see replies to me and anything with the hashtag Easternblot chat. So anywhere else I won't be able to see. So I can't currently see Facebook because I only have one pair of eyes, unfortunately. Right, so I mentioned that I wanted to try to see if we could use these live streams as sort of an online version of kind of a casual hangout, sharing ideas about online science communication. And I do have a whole list of topics. I've got my little notebook. It's got there's more. There's 4 pages of notes, which don't worry, we won't go through 4 pages of notes. But it was just a little bit to try to get some ideas. So some of the things I wrote down, and some of this was also in the blog post I posted originally. So how do you find an audience online? That's something that I've been struggling with because I think that the majority of my audience for online scicomm stuff I've been doing is either other scientists or other science communicators. And I found it really hard to reach new people. So that's a challenge I've been having. That was something that I thought maybe other people were having too, and something we could talk about. So let me know if that's a problem you're also having. And I do have a tweet now from David, but I think this is just related to the problems I was having earlier and not through the live stream itself. If someone wants to reply to him and give him the link, please do. Oh, it's Frank watching. Hi, Frank, and cooking roast beef at the same time. That's very impressive. My own plan for dinner was I just got a pizza, so I have to make dinner for myself today. So plus I don't have time because I spent 45 minutes trying to get this to work. Yeah, so one of the things that I thought we could have online chats about, now that I know how to fix the technical issues, I can get it to work better next time. Also won't do it on Easter Sunday, so there'll be more people. International audiences was another thing I wrote down, and that was actually inspired by me trying to find the perfect time for a live stream. I chose 5 p.m., almost 6 p.m. right now in the UK, because it's a time where all of Europe and all of North America are awake, but I'm very aware that there is still another section of the planet that is also involved in online scicomm that is currently not awake. So what we used to do, actually, I do have a tip for this. We used to have this problem when I was at F1000, and we had to have online meetings, Skype meetings, with the global group of people who were like our advocacy group. So there were like, I think 400 PhD students and postdocs around the world, and we would invite them every month to come join us in a live chat to ask questions. And we had, whenever we did this, we had two of them. So we had two different times in the same week, and then one would be in the morning in the UK. So that's when Europe and Asia are awake, and Australia as well, I think. And then the other time was at the end of the day in the UK, which was for people in Europe after work, or people in the US during the daytime. And we just told people this is going to be exactly the same talk twice. And then they could just sign up for whichever one they wanted. And but we did find that the ones we would sometimes get only two people in one of the chats. So you would have people just get up really early in the US and join the European time zone. But yeah, it was, I'm not going to do this twice. I already tried it 10 times just trying to get this running, which is a bit mad. So that's maybe something to talk about. I think if I do want to talk about international audiences, I probably would do that one as a double one, just because of the theme. And it's kind of crazy to only have one time zone and then have a whole discussion about how other people can't join because of time zones. And time zones is, of course, not the only thing. YouTube is owned by Google, which I think means that people in China won't be able to see any live YouTube videos. So if you're doing something for a Chinese audience, but you're based outside of China, online scicomm gets really difficult, and that's also something that I've had experience with. It's just really, every country has, in general, every country has its own favorite platforms. It just happens that a lot of countries have the same favorite platform. So wherever YouTube is popular, you can do YouTube videos, but there are other things that are more popular in other places. What else was I thinking of? I'm just going to briefly take a break and check my tweets. There is nothing new there, which is good, and nothing new in the chat. Yeah, so the other things were, how do you use online tools to build or support your projects? Again, that's something I thought would be a really good topic to talk about with people in real time, because the way that we often discuss this is, for example, in Facebook groups. There are a couple of really useful Facebook groups specifically for bloggers, and then we share tips on Google Analytics and things like that, and where to promote your blog posts. But it would also be really interesting to have those conversations in a different format, because if you're doing it on a YouTube live chat, then you can start talking about what are the best tools for YouTube. And I currently do not recommend using OBS for live streaming, because that's what, actually I'm not sure that that's the bit that broke for me today, but something wasn't working, and it just, I actually think it was on the YouTube side, because it went well until that point. Yeah, so what else? I'm not going in order, which makes it very difficult. Another topic, which I don't know if that's something that people, I think about this a lot, and then I realize that often when we're talking about science communication on Twitter, this happens very often on Twitter because tweets are so short and you don't include all the information. There is a difference between scientists doing science communication to support their own projects and professional science communicators doing communication for another purpose. So sometimes if it's a university media department or a communications department, they'll still work in support of the researchers at their institute. But if you look, for example, at museums, their science communication is very different. It's based around what's happening at the museum, and the people doing that communication, they don't personally have a stake in it. A museum is just an example. It's the same for scientific journals, or even freelance people working on assignments, people writing for magazines. These projects, they do them for a client, but people who do science communication in that way don't have a personal stake in the end results, other than they want to do a good job and they want to be acknowledged for their good communication. But if scientists do science communication, it's very often to show what they personally have been working on. So it's their research. And I feel that is an important distinction, but we don't really address it explicitly. So now when I'm talking to people about science communication, I sometimes am talking about one kind and the other person is talking about the other kind, and we really don't connect well about certain reasons why we do scicomm, or how much we want to invest in scicomm. That's a really big difference. If you're a researcher, grant funded to do research, you often don't really have a budget for anything related to online communication or outreach. So you want to use free tools, but if you're working for an organization and doing scicomm on behalf of someone else, then you have a budget very explicitly for that job. So you can do different things, and just even that alone makes such a big difference. So I have a couple more people on here now. I don't know if someone has anything to add. If not, I want to do a whole separate conversation about this once. And now that I know how difficult this is, I was actually going to try to. I was hoping to be able to have guests on, like have an online conversation where there's also another person on screen talking, so that I could interview someone. But it's proving quite challenging to just get myself on the screen. So maybe this is a more advanced topic for the future. But for this in particular, I thought it would be really good to have like the two different viewpoints represented, and even just to get an idea of all these different discrepancies and possible causes of miscommunication sometimes. I'm just looking at Twitter now. So Frank said, for international audiences, it can be really hard to know what situation is really like in countries that are very different to ours. The structure and intensity of science and academia, for example. Yeah, that's true. So I actually I'm planning to go to a science communication meeting in the Netherlands in June. And I haven't worked in the Netherlands since 2002. From what I remember, the research culture is quite similar to the other countries I've worked in, so the UK and Canada. But I know there are differences as well, and I actually want to go to this meeting in part to figure out what the differences are, and especially at the moment to see how it's different in the UK with the REF, with Brexit, versus the Netherlands. I'm actually trying to find maybe pitch this comparison as a little article, but I can't figure out where to pitch it. I can't find an outlet that seems like it would be interested in comparing in communication in science in two different countries. So that's actually something I want to do later not later this week. Well, I guess this coming week. It's on my to-do list to find out who might be interested in talking about things like that. Because that might also make like an interesting series of topics where you compare two different countries side by side and just highlight what the differences are, and also emphasize that if you are collaborating with people in another country, you have to maybe take into account that there are differences in structure and in the way that science is done. So, for example, I've heard from people from the Netherlands who went to do as a student, went to Italy to do a short internship and just were shocked by the culture difference, because the Italians really emphasized taking a break and taking a holiday, and the Dutch researchers were much more used to kind of I guess the more American way of working, where you just have to work all the time because you need to get the results. So that's a culture difference that I wasn't aware of until someone mentioned it to me. And because you don't go around telling people whether or not you leave on time or whether or not you take a break. You usually just talk about about the outputs and the work that you're doing. But I think it is important to be aware about of those differences. And I had a couple of other topics here. I actually want to stop this soon because it is now 6, which was kind of my mental cutoff point for the original stream to start. I know we haven't had enough time for this one, but some other topics that I thought might make interesting online discussions for future times when I do figure out how to fix the stream within 5 minutes rather than 45. Funding for science communication. So I'm currently working on a science communication project that is just grant funded because it was written into the grant that this project should have an engagement and outreach component. So that's really good for me, but I know a lot of people are not in that situation. So I wanted to share some ideas. Maybe people have tips for where to get small grants for science communication works, or where to find sponsors that might be interested. The pros and cons of finding sponsors. Like I've been sponsored for a blog post, which was really good for me because I was able to put some extra time in it. But on the other hand, it does mean that there is now a company linked to a blog post I wrote, and it's not a sensitive enough topic in this case for it to be any problem, but I can see how some topics of science communication you might not want to be associated with a business. And then you can fund things online, of course, with advertisements. And again, there's pros and cons to that. Do you want a Google ad on your site or not? Or would you rather just put your own money in things, which I also sometimes do. The My Career site, for example, we made a very distinct decision to not have ads on My Career, and it's self-funded, but we do have a donation button on there. So if people want to donate to keeping the My Career site alive, you can do that. These things do have running costs, even when they're not updated. And even when if traffic isn't busy, because they still need to be hosted somewhere, and the domain name needs to be paid for per year. So it's not a high amount. I think for My Career the total on average per year is I think the domain is £8 per year, and the hosting is just a fraction of the total hosting I pay. I would say also a one-figure amount, so we're probably looking at £15 per year, but still that's an amount every year for just keeping a site alive that isn't updated very frequently anymore. So again, yeah, costs and ads is a topic that I thought might be interesting for a discussion. Then I also had podcasts. I know nothing about podcasts. I barely listen to them. I've never been on one, I've never produced one, but I know that they're very popular, and I would love to hear from people who host science-themed podcasts, and maybe if I ever figure out how to get a guest on a live stream, we could talk about that. Just general tools for online scicomm, and the other thing I wrote down was networks. When I started in science blogging, there were all these science blog networks, which was really useful to get to know people. That doesn't exist anymore. I know people will say, oh yes it does, because there is this one network over here, but I'm just going to say, compared to 2009, it doesn't exist anymore. But what's out there now? How do people meet and connect and get that same sense of community that we were lucky to have in those early days? That's something that I wanted to talk about at some point. And another big topic is focusing on people as opposed to focusing on the science itself. And I think I tweeted about this particular thing, or I put it on Facebook. I can't remember what I used. But I personally really like seeing features about the people who do the research, getting to know them, finding out what they do, what their hobbies are. There's lots of Instagram accounts and blogs that focus on these things, and even just things like scientific magazines always have interviews and features with talking to people directly. But on the other hand, there is the focus on the research or the science output itself. Like, you want to learn something, so you want pieces, articles, features that explain what is actually being done. And finding the balance between those two, that's something that I thought we could talk about. Especially this came into my head because of the recent scientist selfie discussion, whether or not scientists should be on Instagram and if it's a problem that there are so many women using Instagram. I don't think it is, for the record, and I like seeing those accounts and I follow quite a lot of them. But I also look at other media where science is discussed more in depth without any connection to the person, because ultimately you want it to not depend on the person. You want the science to stand on its own and like be reproducible. But you do also want to get to know the people who work on this. So it's one of those situations where it's a bit of a balance, and something that I thought might make for an interesting discussion at some point. Maybe not on Easter Sunday in a stream that's the backup stream of the thing that I actually tried to upload, though. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight, an hour ago. And I know that I lost at least 75% of the people that were logged in at 5 p.m. So kudos to the people who either stayed or otherwise stumbled upon the new stream. I will do this again, and it will work better. I really still have no idea what went wrong. I got an error that when I Googled it, no results came up. I was the only person who ever had this particular error. Everything was working technically after, like, not right away, but after 10 minutes. The encoder was working. I could see myself on the screen. The YouTube preview page said everything is working well and we can see the stream. But then when I actually hit the button to show it, that wouldn't work. So it just wouldn't broadcast for whatever reason. And I still haven't figured out why. The backup stream, in case you're interested, the first time I tried this, I accidentally set it to private. So it did work, but you just never saw it. So that's how I managed to fix this second stream so quickly. But now that I know how to do that faster, next time I'll get a backup stream ready sooner in case of emergency. So thank you very much for sticking around, and you can continue to send me tweets. I don't know if you can continue to use the chat or the comments on this particular video from within YouTube. It might switch from chat to comments. I know it sometimes does, but I don't know if that's something that I need to do myself, or if it just automatically happens. And yeah, please do tell me which of these many topics you would most be interested in having as part of a discussion next time. And then I'll try to get it working sooner. And happy Easter, or happy Passover if you celebrate that, or otherwise just happy April Fool's Day, which is pretty non-denominational. And hopefully see you next time, and see you next time on time. And I am going to figure out how to stop this now. I do know how to do that. There's my button. So thanks for joining me. Bye!